Hi, this is Phil Boyce. I'm the Director of Green Care for Children in Santa Barbara, California, and the author of the Go Green Rating Scale. This is another one of our segments on green child care settings. Today, we're going to be talking about arsenic and exposure to arsenic by very young children. Now, we're worried about arsenic because the EPA says that arsenic is a known human carcinogen. It's linked to stomach cancer, skin cancer, lung cancer, and it's also been demonstrated that a long-term exposure to even very low levels suppresses a child's immune system and makes them more susceptible to common diseases. Now, you would think that if a piece of wood has been treated 5, 6, 7 years ago, that it wouldn't come to the surface, wouldn't we? And we'd also think that if in the processing and in the treatment of the wood, they injected it into these little holes, that it wouldn't leach out. Well, in our own research, we've been going through to different child care centers and doing simple tests, and in 2 out of 5, generally, we're finding high levels of arsenic on the surface of the treated structure. So what we're going to talk about today is how to do a simple home arsenic test for your wooden structures to find out if there's any exposure issues. Now, I just want to point out, even though arsenic was banned in 2004, they've substituted it with high levels of chromium and copper to preserve the wood. Chromium and copper each carry their own health hazards, but not as significant as arsenic. So just because a piece of treated wood doesn't have arsenic doesn't mean that it's necessarily safe. Now, when we're talking about treated lumber, what we're looking for are pieces of wood with these little perforations. What they do is they take the preservative and they inject it in through these little slits so it penetrates a little bit more deeply into the core of the wood. So that's your first indication if it has these evenly spaced injection marks to the piece of wood. You're going to find that in a lot of different types of treated lumber. This can be stained green, it can be stained red, it can be stained brown. These are called peeler poles, and sometimes peeler poles are treated without the injection marks, but they're still treated with heavy metal based wood preservative. It could be arsenic. So we've tested this as well. Often the indication here is that it's stained a green or a brown. Now, there are many different features that you might find in your child care setting that are made out of wood. For instance, play structures. You might find picnic tables or garden beds or landscape walls or retaining walls made with treated lumber. In this case, we can see that this lumber has not been treated because it doesn't have those puncture marks. This has been painted with a shellac, which is going to give you a long-term protection. You can see that this bench doesn't have treatment. There would be no arsenic in this wood because it doesn't have those puncture marks. Now you can see this play structure has no perforations. That means this wood has not been treated with an arsenic-based wood preservative. So we can feel pretty safe that this is not going to pose an exposure to arsenic to young children. Now, if we're going to be doing our home test kit, this is not an endorsement, but this is the product that I like to use because it's very simple, it's affordable, and it's easy. The first step to this process is to take a hand wipe, just a little baby wipe, and you want to rub this piece of wood over the area of about a square foot. You want to try and get up any residues that might be here on the surface. So after we rub this for about a minute, we take our dirty hand wipe and we take one of our test kits. This is the little jar, and the idea is inside this jar there are 2 chemicals in these 2 plastic vials. One is a powder, one is a liquid. When the 2 react by themselves, there's no gas let off. But when the 2 react in the presence of arsenic, you can see in the inside of this lid, there's a little tab. In the presence of arsenic, the gas that's released reacts with this little tab and discolors it. It turns it from a very, very light tan up to a deep orange, depending upon the level of arsenic. So we take our dirty sample and we stick it inside this jar. Now, you see there, it says there's a fill line. We then take, I use bottled water because every now and then you're going to find groundwater that's been contaminated with arsenic. So we take bottled water and we fill it to that line and we agitate. Okay? So we have two vials. One is a powder and one is a liquid. We take the powder and we have our bottle filled with water and the hand wipe with the arsenic, with the residue from the treated lumber. We take the powder and we dump it in and we agitate slightly. The next thing we do is we take our liquid, we pour that in as well, and then very quickly we take the lid. Now here's the important thing, is you've got to keep this tab clean. We put that on and we just agitate ever so gently. We want to mix the reagents with the arsenic, or I should say with the treated, the residue from the treated lumber, but we don't want to get any of this to splash up in the lid. So just a light, subtle agitation is going to be adequate. We check our watch and we wait for 30 minutes. All right, now we've spent our 30 minutes letting the reagents react to the top of the lid. Sample number 1 was the play structure. So we take the lid off carefully and we set it down here next to our bar. Now what do we see? We see that there was no reaction between the powder and the liquid and arsenic that would release a gas that would cause a discoloration in this lid. So we know the play structure is free of arsenic. All right, here's sample number 2 with these round peeler pulls. Open it up. No indication of arsenic in this wood, so that's clean. That's great news. All right, now we're looking at this treated wood with these perforations. Sample number 3 comes up clean. So even though we have a number of different treated wood specimen and features on this property, there's no arsenic in it that we've been able to detect. So that's great news, and you should feel confident that not every piece is going to have soluble arsenic on the surface. So we've talked about the presence of arsenic and the potential health impacts of children being exposed to it. It's incredibly dangerous material, and it is present in many backyard and child care settings. It's an easy material to test for with a simple little home test kit, and it's an easy material to protect against. And it's worth it for all of us to take that step to protect the young children. So, this has been Phil Boyce, the Director of Green Care for Children, as well as the author of the Go Green Rating Scale, checking out. Stay safe.